Hey everyone, and welcome back to a new video. Ever since I announced a few weeks ago I was going to Botswana on a photo safari, I've gotten tons of requests to go over what equipment I'm bringing along and why am I bringing it. So that's what this video is going to be about. I'm going to show you what's in the bag, what choices I made, what accessories I'm bringing along, and why. Make sure you hang around for my bonus news at the end, of which I'm very proud, and I'll be giving someone the opportunity to win a 600mm f4 lens. My name is Simon D'Entremont, and I'm a professional nature and wildlife photographer living in Eastern Canada. I make weekly videos giving you photo tips or taking you behind the scenes for nature photography. Subscribe if you want to see more. For this trip to Botswana, I'll be starting off in northern Botswana around Kasane along the Chobe River. I'm being hosted by Pangolin Photo Safaris, who also has a great YouTube channel. I'll spend 5 days around the Chobe, then going off to the central Kalahari for a few days and finishing off on the Okavango Delta. Let's start off by getting right into my first bag. This is a Low Pro Pro Runner BP 450 AW Mark II. Here's a quick peek on how I've got it packed. I'll go through all of the items one at a time. Let's start off with camera bodies. This is my Canon R5. I carry them in these neoprene sleeves made by Lenscoat. They're very good actually. They last and they're stretchy, so I've got like a L bracket on my camera and I have no problem fitting it in here. So when you're putting it with other things in the case, you don't need the separators and the dividers anymore, which take up more room. So these neoprene sleeves can do the job of putting this right up against a lens, for example. My Canon R5, great camera, 45 megapixels, image stabilized sensor, 12 frames per second, killer autofocus. This will be my main camera body, one of 2 that I'm using on my trip. Next, I've got my Canon R6. So this will be my secondary body on another lens. This is 20 megapixels, same autofocus, same 12 frames per second, really solid camera. This one doesn't do 4K 120 slow motion like the R5 does. So I'll be doing a lot of the slow motion footage out of my R5. This one I can do 4K in 1080. But it'll also do a wonderful 24 frames per second 4K that I will be using this for as well. I'll also be using this for some vlogging and recording myself as I go about my activities in Africa. I'll also be bringing another camera along, which is my GoPro Hero 10 Black. This is really good for slow motion, time lapses, and with a few clamps and so on, I can attach this, for example, to our safari vehicles and record some footage of me going about doing my business. I'm also bringing a 4th camera along, which not everyone will agree is a 4th camera per se, but I'm bringing my iPhone 14 Pro. And I'm very interested in trying out a few different things. The video seems to be very nice quality. It's got 3 lenses, a wide, medium, and a little bit more telephoto lens in it, and I'm going to try a few different things with this, including if some animals get really close, like an elephant right next to our vehicle or our boat, I may try to get some photos and so on with this. So I'm actually going to be experimenting a little bit whether or not this can be, in certain circumstances, a wildlife photography or nature photography camera. So I'm bringing it along, we'll give it a try. If my results are pretty good, I may make a review about this when I get back. For lenses, my main lens will be my 500mm f4. Got these great neoprene covers from Lenscoat. They wear out after a while, so every few years you have to replace them, unfortunately. Whereas the neoprene bags for my lenses don't seem to wear out. So those are my big 500mm f4 here. I'll show you some light reflecting in it for that great big first objective. I've got a Jobu Designs foot on it with an Arca Swiss plate, which makes it much more convenient for hooking up to tripods and gimbals and the like. This is a fantastic lens, and this will be my main lens. I'll be putting my Canon R5 on this one for the extra reach, the croppability, because this is my lens for distant subjects, farther away, and the combination of having a sharp lens and a very croppable camera with the 45 megapixels on the R5 is a winning combination. My next lens is the Canon 100 to 400 EF version. Like my 500 EF, I use them with adapters on my R series cameras, and they work fantastic. The autofocus is fantastic and so on. So adapting them is not an issue at all. I'll be using the R6 on this because I'll often be filling the frame. If my subject needs to be at 250, 300, 350 millimeters to get the shot that I want and the framing that I want, I'll be using the full sensor. So using a lower megapixel camera is the one that makes sense. So I'll put my R6 on this, my R5 on the 500. For wide angle stuff, I'll be bringing the Canon 17 to 40 f4. Now this is not a particularly amazing lens, although it is an L lens, but it's not that sharp wide open at f4, but this I'll be using stop down most of the time. If there's something really close and I want to take an environmental shot, if there's something like an elephant or a giraffe right next to the vehicle, I want to be getting most of the scene in focus anyway, so using a wide angle lens that's not that fast is no big deal. I'll be stopping it down. And for landscapes as well, I'll be stopping down the lens. So the fact that it's not that sharp at f4 is not a big deal for me. And I'd rather bring something in this along because it's very, very light compared to bringing a very heavy like 24 to 70 f2.8 or f2 that you can get for the R system, which weighs an extra 3 or 4 pounds. This thing is very light actually and will pack easily. Another lens that I'll bring along is the RF 16mm lens. This is an f2.8 lens, so decently fast. And I use this for a few different purposes. Number one, I can put it on my R6 or my i5 and do some vlogging, pointing it back at me. It's wide enough to get me in the field of view. It's an f2.8 16mm, so I can actually technically shoot some Milky Way photography. We're going to be going into the Kalahari that's quite dark. It won't be new moon yet, but we might be able to get some nice shots of the night sky. So this will actually work for shooting some Milky Way, especially some wide panoramas. I do own a better lens for astrophotography, a Sigma Art 20mm f1.4, but it's very, very heavy and I really don't want to bring it along for the whole trip and not be using it more than once or twice. So I'll bring the 16mm along for vlogging, landscapes, and Milky Way shots. I've got a variable ND filter on the end of it as well. When you're shooting video at slow shutter speed, sometimes there's just too much light and you can't get your ISO down low enough. So I've got this to be able to control the lighting a little bit. For teleconverters, I'll be bringing the 1.4 and the 2x along. These are quite heavy, but the 1.4 is critical for me for putting on the 500. It makes it a 700mm f5.6 tack sharp. Really fantastic. I'll be putting this in my primary bag because it's critical that I have this along. The 2x is a little bit more discretionary, so I'm going to put that in my packed luggage, and if for some reason it's delayed or doesn't make it, I can live without the 2x. I'm probably going to use the 2x more for those tight shots where there's maybe a big mammal close and I want to get right in on an eye, for example, as opposed to using it out in the field for running game and so on. So more very specific tactical uses of the 2x, and if it doesn't make it, I can survive. But the 1.4 is really, really important for me, so I'm going to pack that in my main bag with the rest of my equipment. So let's get into some of the other things I'm going to be bringing along. This is a battery grip that allows me to put 2 batteries in. One battery is actually not too bad for me. I can get over 2,000 shots out of one battery. So it's really not the 2 batteries, it's the vertical orientation and all the buttons that I really want when in vertical orientation. So this allows me to have a shutter button. I use back button focus, so I've got back buttons. I've got joystick availability. So this is a great grip that allows me to have the functions that I need when in vertical orientation and has the added benefit of having 2 batteries and not having to change batteries out in the field as much. So you've noticed I'm using the 2-lens, 2-camera body system. And that's important for a couple of reasons. Number one, you want the redundancy of having 2 camera bodies, because if you have one that goes while you're on such an important trip, you're really in bad shape if you've only got 1 camera. So having 2 cameras allows you to have a backup in case one of them goes. Secondly, because it's such a dusty environment, you really don't want to be swapping lenses out very often. So having 2 bodies on your lenses where they stay attached to the same lens most of the time is really a winning strategy. Now, these Canon R cameras do have a great feature in that when you take the lens off, the shutter closes. So this is great in that it covers the sensor when you're changing lenses. It is still handy when you're changing lenses to point your camera down, take the lens off, and put it in this way. That way you've got much less chance of dust getting into your camera body. I've got some binoculars I'm bringing along. These are Nikon Monarch 5s. Very, very good. You're getting into the very good binoculars for this price. It's about 400 US. They're not Zeiss's and Swarovskis of $3,000 that are amazingly sharp, but they meet my needs, and they're better than the $100 department store binoculars that many people would have. If you're looking to step up from a department store binocular to something that's quite good, these Monarch 5s, the Nikon makes a Monarch 7 if you want to spend a little bit more. These are 8x42s, and for me, they're about just the right both size and magnification. The 10x42s will allow you to see more detail, but for me, I'd rather have the steadiness of the 8x than the magnification of the 10x. So these are a very good binocular, weather sealed, work very, very well. Next are memory cards and an effective way of storing them. So I've got a Think Tank Pixel Pocket Rocket, which is basically a card wallet in which I put my cards. I've got some Pro Grade 325 Cobalts. These are quite expensive, unfortunately, $500 US, and I've got a few of these. These Pro Grade Cobalts are above the gold and allow me to shoot the 4K, or even if I want to shoot 8K, which I don't really do. But 4K slow motion footage, I need these. The gold cards or most other cards will bog down after 5 or 6 seconds. So unfortunately though, if I shoot in 4K slow motion on my R5, I only get about 15 minutes and this thing is full. So you need to shoot that 4K footage very carefully. The secondary card on my R5 and the main card on my R6 is SD, so I like these Pro Grade 256 Golds. I've got a few of these and they're quite fast, very snappy, good write speed so the buffers don't bog down very quickly, and they work really well. For my GoPro, I use these little SanDisk. I've got 16 and 32 gigabyte cards for my GoPro, so they're very good, and I've got this little SD adapter to be able to load the footage onto my computer. Now, while I've got plenty of memory cards, my plan is to back those up every day to be able to clean them out and back them up on 2 separate drives for redundancy. But to do that, you need a card reader. I've got a Pro Grade card reader that takes both SD and CF Express, and I'm bringing 2 of these. I'm bringing a backup because if one of these card readers goes on me, I'm really in a hard shape in terms of backing up my photos, so I'm bringing 2 of these for backup. Now, for backing up my photos, my backup strategy is to bring along a laptop, download the photos, and back up duplicates to these 2 Samsung T7 Shield 4 terabyte SSDs. So I've got an HP Omen 17-inch laptop, which I'll be bringing along, and I'll be downloading the photos and putting them on these 4 terabyte SSDs on a daily basis. So I can clear up my memory cards for the next day, but I'll make sure I have 2 of these. And I'll always make sure that I keep these in separate locations. I'll put one with my laptop and one on my person or on my luggage. Basically, I don't want to have these 2 at the same place because if something happens to wherever I've got them stored, I'm losing everything. So I'll always keep these separately. I also have this 1 terabyte drive that I use for my field monitor, which I can use as storage. I've got some unused storage on my PC, and I've got a couple of other SSDs that I'll bring along just in case. I've got a headlamp just for walking around at night or if we're out doing some astrophotography. Great to have a headlamp with you. I'll also be shooting some video while I'm there, so along with video, you want some good sound. For vlogging, I've got the Rode Wireless Go 2 system. One of these on me and one of them on top of the camera. These are great for picking up my audio and giving it a pretty decent quality in the field, and is pretty good when it's windy as well, for example. So this works really well for vlogging. For recording the sounds of the wildlife that I'm filming or taking some photos of, I've got the Rode VideoMic NTG right here, which I'm also recording right now my voice, but I'll be taking that with the field with me, putting it on top of my camera and pointing it at my subjects. It's a directional mic, so it tries to cut out the voices and the sounds on the side and tries to target your subjects. So I'll be using that when I really want to target my sound recording at my subjects. When I want to record the broader environment of the sounds all around me, I've got a Zoom H1N. These are only about $100. They're really handy. I've got 2 mics on them, and they're just great at picking up the environment sound. So if the morning sounds amazing with the animals and everything, I want to record it with this. This will make a great add-on to some of my video work, for example. Now for camera and lens care and maintenance, I've got a few things. I've got cleaning kits and cleaning swabs and cleaning solution for my sensor, which I'll do when I need to. Picking out spots out of your sensor for photos is not too difficult, but for video, it's much more of a challenge. So I'm really going to try to keep my cameras clean. As I mentioned, point your cameras down when you're changing out lenses. Make sure that shutter is closed before swapping out the lens. And I'll keep a close eye on my sensor whether or not it needs cleaning on a regular basis. Before cleaning, you want a little blower here. So I've got this little blower, which you can take the lens off, give it a blow while pointing up, and that way if there's any dust being moved around, it can fall out. I've also got these Zeiss lens wipes. These are very good for wiping off your lens and keeping it clean, keeping some dust on it. A little bit of a brush to get anything big off there first is a good idea as well. And you can also wipe down your lens and your camera with one of these before you swap out the lens, because if your camera and lens is covered in dust and that's when you open it up, it can lead to some trouble. So giving it a quick wipe before removing the lens is a good idea. Power adapters are very important when you're traveling to a foreign continent. And so I've got a few of these that will work in Botswana. You need lots of power. So I've got 2 or 3 of these just because I might have to charge multiple devices at the same time. I need battery chargers for several devices, my computer, and so on. So I'll have a few of these. On the health front, sunscreen's very important. You're gonna spend a lot of time out in the sun out there. So I've got some sunscreen, I've got some bug spray, lots of long sleeve shirts, long pants. I'll be bringing some malaria medication along, but in northern Botswana, around the Chobe River and so on, is not a place that's terrible for malaria. I know some people who go there and don't take malaria pills, but I'm gonna take them just in case. On the health and safety front, a wide-brimmed hat to cover me from the sun is also a great idea. I prefer a ball cap, but having a wide-brim hat is handy with all the sun, but also I'm gonna have either a microphone or a field recorder on top of my camera. And with a ball cap, you can't put your face to the back of the camera without the brim of your ball cap bumping into your stuff. So this one here will just fold up, and so this is a lot more handy for me than a ball cap. I've got a rain cover for my 500mm lens in case we get caught in the rain, but this will also come in handy and will double as a dust cover while we're driving around. So when we're driving around, I'll take this rain cover and drape it over my camera and lens and keep it from collecting a lot of dust. So this I'll actually take with me even when it's not raining and will be very handy for that. And if it starts raining, dual use. Now for a tripod, I don't need to bring a big tripod. They've got gimbals on all the vehicles and all the boats, so that will hold my primary lenses. I am going to bring a small travel tripod, which will fit into my luggage, and this has a couple of purposes. Number one, if we're shooting some astrophotography, for example, I'll need a tripod. But number two, one of my main uses of this actually is to do a trick. One of the challenges in the vehicles and the boats, sometimes you can't get as low as you want to get a really nice low angle, and you can't get out of the vehicle either. So here's my trick. I can connect my Canon camera to my phone via an app where I can change all the settings. I connect my camera to my tripod, have it upside down and stick it outside the vehicle to bring it down as low as I want to get the low angle. And on my app, I can see my field of view and change my settings and take photos of that low angle while hanging this outside the vehicle or the boat. This tripod is a Sure Traveler 7C. I know it looks like it's pronounced Siriu, but it's actually pronounced Sure. When traveling on planes and so on, I'll also have this little backpack. This is actually going to hold my laptop and a few personal items, and I can stick a few photography items in there as well, and I hope to bring this as well as my larger bag both on the plane at the same time. I think this is small enough to be my personal item. And I promised you some bonus news. I've just launched a new wildlife photography course, along with the Journal of Wildlife Photography. Over 5 hours of content to help you get the skills that allow me to take photos like this, this, and this. This course is targeted at people early to intermediate in their photography journey. The first 500 purchases of this course will have a photo contest, and the winner taking home a 600mm f4 lens worth $13,000 US. Really. Details in the description below. The mornings there will be on the cool side, around 10 degrees Celsius. Being a Canadian, I can handle a bit of cool. That being said, when you're on a boat, traveling pre-dawn to a location on the boat, it can get a bit cool. So I'll be bringing this small down jacket to put on top of a long sleeve shirt, for example, because you can take off the layers because it'll get pretty warm by the time the sun comes up. But this is very light. This one's made by Carhartt, very small, easy to pack, easy to squish up into your luggage so it doesn't take a lot of space, and an easy layer to take off once it starts getting warmer. This is my field monitor and recorder. This is an Atomos Ninja 5. Takes these big Sony batteries and has a 1 terabyte drive on it. This can record either the video footage that your camera is shooting, or it can record what the viewfinder sees, which is how I'm most likely going to be using it. I can use it in other videos and training courses, for example, to show other photographers exactly what I'm seeing in the viewfinder. So this is a very handy device, a bit heavy, but works really well, records the viewfinder and backs up as extra memory if I need to for recording video footage. Batteries, of course, very important. I've got for my R5 and R6, I've got these Canon batteries. I've got 3 of the most recent NH models that have about 10% more power than the previous versions. I'll have about 5 batteries in all, which is 2 for each camera and 1 extra backup. I really don't expect to go through 2 whole batteries per camera every day, because that's about 4,000 photos. But shooting video footage and keeping the camera going, shooting video can use quite a bit of power, so it's always good to have a few extra batteries. I would love to bring my drone, which is a DJI Mavic Air 2S, but unfortunately most of the places I'm going don't allow drone flight, so we're possibly going to go for a helicopter ride, which will give me some nice aerial footage and maybe some photos as well, so I'll see whether or not that's an option. As for backing up my photos and video when I get back home, Synology just sent me one of their new drives, which I hope to install and have running before I leave. That way when I get back, I've got plenty of unused storage space on those devices. I will be bringing a strap, a carrying strap for my lens along. I've got a couple of Black Rapid ones in case we go for a hike or a walk someday and want to bring a big lens along. Having a strap to put it around my shoulder. These are cross straps that I like to wear as opposed to the ones around your neck. They're much better for holding the weight of the lens in a comfortable position. When you're out in the field, it's always nice to have a little bit of extra power. An extra battery is really cheap these days. This costs like $40. It's by Ifu and will hold 4, maybe 5 charges of my phone, and I can power some extra accessories with it, and it even has an indicator showing how much of the battery power is left. If you buy one, get it with that, otherwise you don't know when you need to charge it again. So this is really handy. It has USB-C and traditional USB A 2 and 3 on it for charging all kinds of different devices. Really handy. I'll also make sure I have various cables, USB-C, USB-A, 2C, and so on. So you always need a few extra cables and you never know when you're going to need it to connect different devices together. So I'll bring a few extra cables as well. I've also got a remote shutter switch in case the technique of hanging my camera upside down off the tripod and the app, I'm having a hard time working it. I've got this remote shutter release I can use as well. So that's it about my trip to Botswana. I'll be sure to make a video when I come back about my trip. Let me know in the comments below what you'd like to see and what you'd like to learn about. I can maybe show you that in my video. I hope this video is helpful for you, either in deciding what gear you need in the future or how to pack for your own African safari. I hope you can use this information to go out there and take some amazing photos. I know you can do it.